Hi everyone, welcome to Eco Convos with Dan. Look, hey, today's convo is with the incredibly passionate Tammi Jonas. Now, what the Jonas family have been doing on Jonai Farms has been really well documented in print and television and radio. So we touched on this a little bit just to give a bit of a background before delving deep into their passion, and we discussed agroecology, the involvement with the Food Sovereignty Alliance, Community Supported Agriculture or CSA, and where things are headed in the future. Look, the passion she has for her farm, her family, and the community is undeniable, and it's an exciting vision for the future of agriculture. It's a great chat, and like often, time went so much faster than it felt. So I'm sure you're going to get a lot out of this. I know I did. Look forward to talking to you soon. Cheers. Hey everyone, welcome to Eco Convos with Dan. I'm your host, Dan Van Der Hoek, and we are here over Zencastr with the absolutely fabulous Tammi Jonas. Tammi, thank you for coming along and letting us come into your place and have a bit of a chat.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So Tammi, you're from Jonai Farms. So Jonai Farms down in Victoria. Jonai Farms and Meatsmiths. I think that's an interesting, bit of an interesting one for everyone. What's part of what you're doing there that's say different to say some commercial conventional farms?
Well, that's a long answer, really. But I'll first start by saying I'm joining not only from Jonai Farms but also the traditional and unceded lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung, and like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present. And I guess that's one of the first things that we do differently is we acknowledge whose country we're on, and that's part and parcel of how we live on this farm. Always working towards ways to find how to promote Indigenous sovereignty as well as food sovereignty for everyone. And the meatsmith part of it, though, to be more direct, we built a butcher shop here on the farm back in 2013. It's been licensed since January 2014. And I went from being a former vegetarian academic to being a pig farming butcher here on the farm. So
it's like transformation there.
It took longer than a day, like there was a bit of a journey there. But yes, that's something no longer unique to us. There are actually a lot more farms that now have processing facilities, but we were one of the early ones. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be a really, there's a really cool. There must be a really cool story there. How did you get started in doing what you're doing first, before we really get into the meat and potatoes of your farm and your operations? How did you get into this? Because obviously, as like you said, from a vegetarian, this is quite a change.
It is. I mean, my story's been told a lot of times. So I don't want to bore people who've heard it before, but the short of it is that we wanted to be on land. We were in the city in Melbourne, and we'd wanted to be on land for a long time. I'm from a cattle ranch in Oregon. I've been here since '92, and in trying to work out how to go to land, we worked out eventually that farming was the right way to do that. And as a long-term vegetarian before, because of the way animals are treated, I knew that pigs are the worst treated in industrial systems, and pigs and poultry. And so we knew very quickly when we decided we'd be farmers that we would come and farm pigs so we could learn for ourselves and then show others that you can grow animals outdoors on pasture and make a living doing it, and a joyful one for you and animals that are treated well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such an important thing for people to know, because there is a lot of people in that same sort of boat with the idea of I don't want to. I don't want to hurt animals. I don't want to get into those sorts of practices. So they don't want to support those sort of ideas, and so the idea of becoming vegetarian straight up is an easy way to do that. But there is a different way to do it for those of us who still love a steak.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. And I mean, unless you have, like a vegan's position that it's immoral to kill and eat animals at all, most vegetarians are choosing it quite often for environmental reasons, which is, we should talk about that. But also for ethical reasons of how the animals are raised. And they just don't have to be raised in sheds to be able to raise animals for meat.
Absolutely. So I think that's it is really, really important thing for people to understand and realize, and certainly something I've realized in doing this podcast and doing the talking to different people who are looking at looking at their animals and looking at saying, well, these are beautiful creatures that we are raising. We want them to have the best life possible, throughout everything, with just like you say on your website, and like we know Nick Holliday was saying as well, one bad day.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're now in serious planning stages to build an abattoir here on the farm as well. So we've already got the butcher shop, and the next stage is to have our own slaughtering facility. And then that one bad day will not even actually be one bad day, because they won't know it's coming. They will have lived a full and happy life up until the moment they die, without any stress of transport. They won't have to be put in like industrial pigs for slaughter. It'll be closing the loop entirely.
That's absolutely fantastic. It's something that I know a lot of farmers who are doing what you're doing are aspiring to. So the fact that you're actually doing it, it's very, very exciting.
It's super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there? Have I heard a couple of pig noises in the background?
There's a bit of noise out that where Stuart is, and dogs. Hang on. Okay. Hang on. I've got my AirPods. I'll just put them in, because then it'll.
Oh, sorry. I don't mind it there in the background at all. It's like it makes it legit.
Okay, you're all right with it. I mean, it's a farm.
That's right.
We joke, I do a lot of lobbying for legislative reform around planning as part of the Food Sovereignty Alliance. And one of the things that we joke about here with my office being right next to the big shed and the dogs being here is that we have competing land use issues. So, like I'm zoned residential and he's zoned industrial over there.
That's fantastic. And neither of you want to share the space. We know that.
That's right. The dog, though.
So, Tammi, going on from that idea of you were saying about the work you're doing with the Food Sovereignty Alliance, so what is the Food Sovereignty Alliance, and what are they doing to support farmers and the world in general?
Yeah, so the Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance has been around since 2010. We turned 10 last year, and in short, what we're doing is advocating for everybody's right to nutritious and culturally appropriate food that's produced and distributed in ethical and ecologically sound ways. And also core to it is everybody's right to democratically participate in their food and agriculture systems. So having choices about what we grow, what we eat, where we can shop, and being involved in the decision-making processes that lead to the kind of food systems we have. And for the last 7 of those 11 years, I guess, we've been much more explicitly farmer-led. We're not only farmer-focused, but we do believe that the radical transformation of the food system that we need starts from the ground up. It starts from production up, and then that will change what is available to eaters in the cities and in regional areas if we can actually produce the food that they want to access.
Yeah. But you think that there is certainly a call for it, and I've banged on about it quite a bit through this podcast. With the idea of people saying, well, we want to know where our food's coming from. You go to the cafe, you want to know, where are these eggs from? Where's your bacon from? Where's the ham from? That's becoming more of an important thing. And I think we were touched on it when we were talking with Jackie Hinchy, when we talk about what Fan's doing, and that there's a lot of the bigger restaurants and those chains are really starting to get that idea out as well. And so starting to realize that's what the customers are wanting. So they're starting to provide that. I think that's really, really exciting.
It is really exciting. And I think people are getting better at asking, whether you're in the butcher shop or the restaurant, asking where these things have come from. And it's like a simple guide I give people when they want to know where the meat is from. If you ask a restaurant or a butcher shop where's the pork from, if they can't tell you literally the name of the farm, it's not pastured pork, because there still aren't that many of us, and we all have names and faces. So if they can't tell you, it's not actually going to be pastured.
No, that's right. It's from the butcher down the road, and we were told it was great.
Yeah.
I think there's that idea where we run with the hashtag on all of our stuff, and it's hashtag demand real food.
Yes.
And I think that's once again, people are demanding it. They're wanting that. That desire is there, and it's starting to be met, which like we just said, is just absolutely brilliant.
It is. So one of the main things the Food Sovereignty Alliance focuses on is
Mm.
what are the barriers to that demand being met, and you would have known from some of the conversations with Nick and Randall and probably Jackie as well. Often it's regulatory barriers, whether it's planning, the way the planning scheme works that stops us doing what we're doing, or food safety regulation that's perfect for something that processes 10,000 hams a day, but not good for one that processes 10 a month. So we're working with governments across Australia to change those regulations to be more suitable for small scale farmers, to let us flourish.
That's wonderful. So those sort of barriers that have been there for it's there for the big boys, the bigger companies, your large commercial slaughterhouses and whatnot, being able to say this is the standards that we're able to meet. Is that held up? Is that trying to come up with the word. Is that a hindrance to what you guys are doing? Because there's a particular level that only they can meet because they've made the regulations?
No, so it's interesting. It's a great question, Dan. So it's not that the standards are too high for us to meet. It's that they're inappropriate to our scale. So I'll give you probably two simple examples. One is in my butcher shop here on the farm, I need to do certain amounts of microbiological testing to make sure that there are no pathogens in the environment and we're putting out safe product. But those the regimes for the testing are written as though we're producing 10 to 100 times more than we are. And so the expense and frequency of the testing is way beyond what it should be for a tiny operator like us. But it's not scaled.
The amount that comes through. The amount that,
for example, for us to have a listeria management plan, we're meant to send 5 samples, eventually after the initial testing phase, 5 samples every quarter of every ready-to-eat product as it will be sold. So they would want 5 whole hams from us to be thrown away after the testing. And the ethics of that really upset us. But we also literally produce between 40 and 60 hams a year at Christmas. So
to do that every quarter, that's 25% of what your actual output is.
Yeah, I can't do that. That's ridiculous. No. It's madness.
No, I can. Yeah.
Yeah, and then to give a planning example, again, it's not the standards we can't meet. It's that for the abattoir, one of the considerations is they'll be bringing in these B doubles with 1,000 pigs on it, right? And it's no, it's Farmer Will who's going to come in with his ute with his little tandem trailer and 4 pigs on it. No, I don't need a facility for a B double.
Yeah, I think so. How's that going in terms of the looking at things a bit differently and being able to adjust for small scale?
It's everything here is state based, and so it depends on which state you ask. In Victoria, it's going better and better. We've been more active and had more successes here for longer. Queensland, though, it's starting to improve. I think having Nick and Randall on the AFSA committee has really helped and Dan also up at Bellisato is on the committee. So having their efforts with the Queensland government, we just got invited to be members of an advisory group for the animal welfare standards up in Queensland. And that's only about the 3rd government process we've been invited to participate in up there. Whereas in Victoria now, anything agriculture related, we get asked to give input, whether it's around the change to the codes for intensive livestock production or animal welfare stuff. I just got one today about food safety standards review. So we'll be in there with that scale perspective, saying, this is great that you want food to be safe. We care even more because we literally know everybody we sell our food to. And here's what's going to make your standards not work at our scale. But how can we agree on making them super safe, but appropriate to our scale?
So in terms of that, the essentially moving forward that you guys are having down in Victoria, is the reason for maybe being slower in other states, is that due to representation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's because although AFSA is a national organization, we need, for somebody to be able to go in and meet with ministers or their advisors, we need people on the ground. The other thing we found in our decade of operating is that if there's not a member on the committee who has enough knowledge and experience and passion to fix this problem, then it's hard for us to find we're all volunteer committee members, right? So for us to find the time to dedicate to go do that lobbying is hard if it's not something we know a lot about.
Yeah. So by increasing that essentially that membership and that presence in an area is going to make it a lot easier, because you can do this and you can do this and you can do this. It's not all relying on the shoulders of one or two people.
That's right. And then we established a legal defense fund some years ago, maybe 6 years ago, and through our fund we do employ one legal advisor, and she's able to give the legal support. But then our committee members need to be the lobbyists, if you like, who go into the meetings with the politicians with that legal advice about what reforms are needed.
Yeah. The joys of farming going political. This is
it's right. I think farming's been political for a while.
Yeah, I suppose it used to be about the animals, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of that, so what you guys are doing with AFSA, it's pretty exciting how things are moving forward, how it's actually working for more ethical producers. I think it's a brilliant attitude that you've got. Is that we need to be able to scale it, we need to be able to do it, we need to be able to look after our animals, our people, and our land. It all becomes it's quite a holistic thing.
It definitely is. Yeah, I mean, we bring a totally different approach. I know Nick spoke to you, and I think Randall did too, about agroecology. And so in an agroecological system, you not only are thinking about the care for the animals, the care for the soil, the care for the plants, but it's also about the care for your community. And it's also a social movement that cares about a radical transformation of the food system to make it fair for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where, once again, where a lot of conventional farmers are finding the issues in their system, the way the system's run, because it all becomes about, it's about head count, and it's about, essentially how much can I flog these paddocks out, which burns them in the long run, and they're finding out the issues with that, three generations down the track, and all of a sudden these once productive farms are now struggling to even pull a basic wage, or even not even that, they're going negative.
Yeah,
which is devastating for the families. It's devastating for everyone involved.
It really is. And I mean, a lot of those you're talking about, the family farms that got drawn into industrialized sort of production models, and so they've become part of the causes of climate change, and also of like the kind of economic inequities that we have. But now they're suffering as they're the victims now of the same thing they were part of causing, and yet they're really they're not the bad guys. They're just caught in a terrible system.
Well, they were told, this is how to do things. This is how to make it work. And okay, so no worries, we'll do this.
Yeah.
And then the like you said, they're part of it, but they've also become in a lot of cases the scapegoat.
Yeah.
They're saying, well, it's actually, cattle are what's killing the environment. It's not coal. It's not this. It's not that. It's the cattle. And it's like, well, bullshit. It's not. That's not.
Yeah,
that's only such a small part of it.
That's right.
And so they are taking the blame, but once again, there's that level of, the level of family that comes involved. All of a sudden, you've got the young upstart who comes on and says, "Hey, there's a different way to do things." But you've just annoyed the hell out of dad, you've annoyed the hell out of your uncle, you annoyed the hell out of your grandmas, your grandfather, because you're changing the system, you're changing everything we've got. What was wrong with these paddocks? Now you want to put 50 other paddocks into our park? What are you nuts?
Yeah, that's right.
That segregation is a real thing. Is a real thing. So trying to overcome that and to show people that there is the other options, that's quite a hurdle.
It is. I think there's a lot of hope, though, as you've seen, the regenerative agriculture movement, which farmers like Nick and Randall and I don't so much subscribe to. We're, as I said, we're agroecologists, but the regen ag movement that captures all those broadacre farmers it's gaining so much momentum, and Farmers for Climate Action, which represents those farmers very well, are really showing that it's possible to make the shifts. And so I think we're seeing a less clashing between generations, because they're all seeing the negative impacts of climate change, across generations.
Are they seeing the essentially their hand in it as well?
Oh,
That's
absolutely. Some are. We've got some multi-gen farmers around here where I remember being at a talk a few years ago, and both the father and son were here, and the father's in his 80s, and his son is in his 50s, and the father came and he just like shook my hand and said, "Thanks so much for airing all of these concerns. We did all those things because we didn't know any better, but it has to stop, and I'm so glad that my son is part of the solution now." And yeah, so they obviously not everyone, but they definitely, some of them are.
Well, I mean, I've been going to a few of the there's a Kendanga Farm store.
Oh yeah, I know them. Yeah,
with Tim and Amber Scott. They often run workshops and different things that from the farm store, and it's they've got all sorts of speakers. Graham Sold, Alan Savory. They're all coming out and doing these, having chats with people, and saying, look, here's other options. They're quite often they're free workshops, so they're $20. It doesn't cost you a heap of money to go, but you go, and there is a number of such a variety of age groups of people who are there who are learning about. Okay, so carbon sequestering today. How does this work?
Yeah, exactly.
And I do find it really exciting because there's different people every time you go.
Yeah, that's right. No, I think they're doing really good work up there around Mullaney. Yeah, and I think older generations are listening more and more because how can you ignore the evidence?
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of going back directly to your farm, so Jonai Farms, you guys have got your different, you've got a dedicated values and outcomes, values and objectives system on your farms.
Yeah.
Is that something that are they you've got it on your website and it's pretty full on? Are they non-negotiable things that you guys work towards?
I mean, everything is negotiable in terms of there's always the interpretation of some things, right? And I think that working out how to live your values should always involve a level of complexity and working out whether or not you're getting it right. So are they immutable? No, but things like we value an aesthetically and aromatically pleasing farm, that I've been able to use that when Stuart was bringing in too much waste stream milk in the middle of summer and it was starting to stink of milk going off, and the pigs don't care. They're happy to have it. But I'm like, but the people don't like it. So we can't bring in this much volume of milk at a time. And it does guide all that decision making.
That would be quite difficult when you're having, you talk about the transparency side of it all. Come and check it out. We've got our open paddocks. Come and check it out and see what you think. Oh, geez, it stinks.
Yeah, the milk was pretty stinky. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, sorry, how long have you been on that property again?
Just over 10 years.
Just over 10, and in that time was the idea from the get go to be on the agroecological path?
I mean, yes, but I didn't know the word agroecology 10 years ago. So it was to be, it's interesting. We were brought here led very much by our ethics of how animals should be raised. And it was in raising them on pasture that we started to understand the need to understand our ethical obligations to the land, not just the animals, because the animals themselves can do so much damage to the land if they're not properly managed. And so that led us to soil, and that led us to microbial life in soil. And, then we built the boning room. And of course that teaches you about supply chain and value, like valuing your resource base. But then that teaches you about feeding people who you are literally doing the butchery for. And so it just kept growing. Our understanding that started with the ethics of how you raise animals just kept growing and growing and deepening until now, we've come so far from where we were 10 years ago that, every Monday morning meeting with our team, there's 6 of us who live here. Every Monday morning we have a meeting, and the first question that everyone has to answer is, what is the land telling us today? And so that guides the week's priorities. Is everyone has to have been observing what's going on with the land, and are we responding to it appropriately? And we just started a new one around birds. So each week somebody's nominated to tell us all about the habits of one of our birds around here, and we're using that as an indicator species to understand when certain things come into season and what grasses might be going then. And we learned that the welcome swallow tells us it really is spring because he's back.
I think there's a big was it aviary study going on at the moment. I know Costa was
there's the backyard birds thing.
Backyard birds, yeah. So that's great. The fact that it's becoming such a they've got such a great sample area to draw from.
Totally, it's been wonderful. Fantastic. Yeah.
So you said you got six people working on the farm. So
one is our youngest son. But 5 of us are working here on the farm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how big is your farm all up?
69 acres.
69 acres. You're doing all that in 69 acres. That's amazing.
Yeah. And one of the sort of legends of agrarian intellectualism who we really like, Wendell Berry, he says that farms need more eyes per acre. And we're taking that very seriously.
Yeah, I love it. So I was reading on your website as well about the idea of an agroecology residential program.
That's right. So one of the residents here is a resident who came. She came as an intern, but now we call her the intern who will never leave because we decided to just keep her. So, she's not chained up, somewhere along. She's actually making us a beautiful bangkok dinner at the moment, but
fantastic.
She's studying law and she did her undergrad in Indigenous studies, and so she's brought this wealth of broad and deep thinking, and is now realized she wants to be a farmer and is learning butchery with me. And we just we write and we read together and we think together, and she doesn't want to go and we don't want her to go. So we're keeping her.
That's fantastic. And the idea, I mean, I do love the idea. We when we started at the beginning of this podcast was, you talked about, the country that you're on, the country that you're working on. And I think there is an amazing connection that a lot of us have started making, and I think there's still a long way to go.
Yeah.
But there is that connection with the First Peoples in our areas and what they were doing and how they were looking after the land before we came and told them how to screw it up.
Yeah, totally. And it's become a major focus of AFSA's after many years of kind of fits and starts trying to work out how to work on Indigenous sovereignty or connection to First Peoples. We're getting much better at it, and we now have a First Peoples First strategy. And one of the kind of central parts for both AFSA and us here on the farm is that the Indigenous Australians believe, the land is law and it made all of us. And we actually very comfortably accept that the land is law and should guide all of our decision making. And it actually helps us with our relationships to each other. Our relationship with the land can help guide us in a relationship with its First Peoples, and it can help guide our relationships with each other. If we just keep putting the land first, we're not the first priority. The land is.
Yeah. Everything grows from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful. I remember reading. I'd never actually heard of dark emu before doing this podcast, and it was one of those things. As soon as it was brought up, it was actually, I think it was Nick Zaccardi was the first guest we actually recorded, and he brought it up as one of his favorite books. I went through, and I'm not the fastest reader in the world, so I'm still working my way through it. But in doing that, I'm trying to make sure I'm taking in as much of it as possible. And I think it is, when you look at things differently, and you realize just the difference between how things were done and how things are being done now, but also how our understanding of how things were done has been completely bastardized and changed to suit the narrative.
Yeah, and Bruce talks about, and so do many other Indigenous thinkers and farmers and writers about, in terms of your custodianship of land. And do you know how like clans will ask for permission if you're going onto a different clan's land? And I have a much deeper understanding of that than I used to, especially as somebody who is a custodian of land. So if somebody comes here and they need to use some of our resources for whatever reasons of their own, they don't have enough food, or they just need something. Instead of simply coming and taking it, the coming and asking permission means you ask the custodian who understands their resource base what they have to offer. And and then there's a negotiation to make sure everyone has enough. So the custodian of that land will, of course, let you have some, even if they are in a bit of scarcity, but they won't let you take so much that it leaves this people hungry. And if you think about the history of colonialism, it just like ignored permissions, ignored knowledge of resource bases. It just goes and takes and takes and takes. And then when it runs out of resources, it goes somewhere else to take the other resources. And so that's like a principle we operate to, is understanding, find the people who understand the resource base and ask them what they have to share. Don't just take things.
Don't just take it. Well, it's we teach our kids that every day,
right?
It's one of those things. It's just it's called manners, people.
Yeah. So, absolutely. Yeah.
So, in terms of what you're the other side of what you're doing as well, I was reading about share options. So, can you explain what that is, please, and go through it?
Yeah. Community supported agriculture is a fabulous system. It's started in Japan in the 70s with organic vegetable farmers, and then really caught on in America in the 80s. And I think they reckon in America now there's like I don't know, 250,000 CSAs or something in that country. So like a lot. And in Australia, it had a more fledgling start earlier, but in the last decade, it's taken off. And the idea is that people subscribe to your farm. They become members of your farm. And depending on the system, and it doesn't necessarily matter whether you're veg or meat, you can either pay the entire season up front, or year in our case, or you can pay it monthly. And in our case, we let our members pay whichever payment schedule suits them better, because we don't need all that money up front in a livestock system. And then we give them a bag of everything that we make. And there's an assumption that one of the principles of CSA is that you take everything you're given. So in some vegetable CSAs, people complain about like the zucchini glut. And it's like, if you've ever grown one zucchini plant, there's a glut no matter what you do.
You're going
to get a lot of them. And so your responsibility as a member of that farm is to take it and learn how to preserve and learn how to be resourceful, right? Or share it with your friends, share your abundance with others if that's what you need to do. So that kind of education is built into CSA, but it also means that you share risks. And a true CSA model like we run means if something terrible happens on the farm, the eater shares the consequences of that bad event with the farmers, so that farmers aren't left out on their own to the whims of nature. Communities also share it. So if you have tomato blight, you might not get tomatoes that year, and you'll get over a bit of your tomato entitlement when you realize sometimes things kill all the tomatoes. In our case, we actually had a terrible disaster where we lost a lot of cattle in January 2020 to a former farmhand's mistake. And it was an oversight. And it's just when you mess up cattle feed to this extent, it was only one day of having access to peanuts, but it killed 15 cattle.
Wow.
And our members were so there for us. They signed up their friends to more workshops to help us come up with the cash to replace the cattle. They signed up for, some tried to sign up for 5 years in advance instead of one. And I let them sign up for 2, but I was like, I just feel like it's too risky, and like John, that member, one of those members in particular, he was like, it's my food security too, So CSA is considered a solidarity economy. It's totally different to the idea of a transaction where you just turn up with money and get what you want.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Is there somewhere where people can learn more about CSAs and maybe
probably the best place to look it up is actually Urgency, URGENCI, because it's urgency. It's from French.
Yep.
They're the global network of community supported agriculture, and they have heaps of great resources on their website.
Awesome. Because I mean, as a consumer myself and hopefully a producer down the track, that's that idea at the moment is very, very exciting, and it's something I've heard about it, and even doing this podcast and talking to people, I've heard about it, but I've not actually thought about in depth as much as to what you just explained. So look, just personally, on a personal level, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and
So
you know, it's a thing too where that we share abundance with the members too. So it's not they don't only have to share the risk. So like every month that we have plenty of meat, which is 90% of them, they get a little bit extra in their bags. They also, in the pandemic, we've had such lockdowns down here in Victoria, and a lot of them are further than 5Ks from the hubs where they collect their meat. So we did direct deliveries because we're essential workers. So we made sure that they still were able to eat what they would like to be eating, not have to go to the local supermarket for their meat again. Lots of ways
sure that would appreciate that. Right.
Oh yeah, and then I took them all sourdough starters in the first lockdown.
That's awesome.
I really added to that.
Yeah. Well, and so you also were saying before that you're doing that people signing up for workshops. You guys do workshops on farm?
Yeah, normally, pre-COVID, we would normally have workshops all through winter because we do a lot of butchery workshops trying to teach better meat literacy to people. So sausage making, we do salami days, really joyful, celebratory salami days where we use everything from the animal.
I need to when we can get down there. I need to come down and join in with us.
Oh, you would love it. Everybody loves the workshops. We love them. Yeah, we've missed them.
So is that so? Then that's open for anyone. Just your layperson to be able to say, "All right, sweet, I want to learn about this."
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I was meant to be having one this weekend, a single carcass ramen workshop. So I make a beautiful Japanese ramen, but I use the bones from the same animal that I roll the belly from, and I use the fat from that animal to make the ramen noodles. And
wow.
Yeah, so I was going to teach all of that, but of course we're still restricted down here.
Yeah. So I think that's one of those one of those things that's big. It's surely things got to be settling down. At some point soon, and we've got to be able to get into that point where we can really get it back into the new normal. It's never going to be like it was before.
Yeah, we've made a really conscious decision in our community to lean into the uncertainty of the times. It's like the pandemic is kind of practice for climate change, we reckon, and setting your expectations that things are going to improve is going to lead to constant disappointment, we believe. And so instead, we're accepting it's helping us be more mindful and more present every single day. Because we're not thinking about what about next week. We're just going, God, what's great about today? And we're just settling into being very present with the uncertainty of these times.
Oh, it's the best way to have that attitude of gratitude, isn't it? It's just to get in and say, this is what it is. What it is. That's just also a very Taoist mentality too. Is that idea? What is. Yeah, and that's it.
That's right.
So, Tammi, it has been a fantastic chat. I really, really, really appreciate your time today, and we're heading to the point where we go through and do our 6 in 60, which is our 6 questions in 60 seconds.
Yep, I'm ready.
So, you ready for that?
Okay.
All right, cool. I want to ask you one more question when we're finished as well. But so let's jump through these. What's a personal habit that contributes to your success?
Being present everywhere I am, always.
And what's the best advice you've ever received?
I had something for this. Hang on. Well, I got a lot of advice when I was younger. Don't be afraid to take risks, but make sure that they are very well calculated risks.
Awesome. All right. What's the one thing you're most fired up about today?
Water justice for First Nations and water sovereignty for everyone. Reforming the Water Act to stop water mining and water trading.
Okay, we need to talk about water in a sec after we finish that. So if you could recommend one book or podcast to our audience, what would it be and why?
Can I have a book and a podcast?
Of course you can.
Okay, so the book is going to be Farming Democracy, which AFSA published in 2018, because it's a tale of small-scale farmers like us and how to have a transformation of the food system. And the podcast is going to be Economic Update with Richard Wolff. It's our favorite. He talks about the perils of capitalism in a day-to-day kind of reading the news sort of way. And he's just so interesting, and he'll change everything the way you think about things.
Awesome. All right, I'm jumping onto that one. And what personal goals are you hoping to achieve over the next 12 months?
Yeah, I love this. I don't set personal goals at all,
Okay.
and I follow values and principles. And I love projects that will help gain food sovereignty for everyone. And so, in terms of our goal, it's having an abattoir by the end of next year, and that's to improve the control of our resource base here, improve the animal welfare outcomes for our animals, and to show others that they too could do this and control the means of production.
That's all right. That's the most awesome answer for someone who doesn't like setting goals. So, okay, the mystery question: what is the most useless talent that you have?
Oh God, the most useless talent. I don't know. I suspect I have a lot of useless talents. I have a very useless talent for being able to write backwards with my left hand without even thinking about it. I write perfectly formed letters backwards with my left. I'm right-handed.
Yeah.
If I try to write with my left hand, it just writes perfectly backwards.
Okay, now I want to not talk to you about water. I want to talk to you about that. That's really, really bizarre, and yeah, probably completely useless. That's awesome.
It's super useless.
Tammi, yeah, well, I think we're going to have to ask you to send us a video of you writing backwards with your left hand. That's just, we're gonna set that through. But before I let you go, you brought up water. So water is the resource.
Yeah.
Why is it that you are that fired up about it, and what in particular are you fired up about with that?
Yeah, I've been fired up about water for a while, but it's like back on my agenda in a big way. I live in spa country here specifically, and so there's a lot of water mining to put into plastic water bottles, and that is like the epitome of what is wrong with our water policy in this country, right? That you can extract it for things that are unnecessary and damaging. And I spent some time up with some of the local people up on the Murray a few years ago when they were talking about the Murray dialing. The dialing was going dry, and they started the pipeline up to Broken Hill, and the extraction of water from the system purely to export product only for the profit of certain people that doesn't benefit local communities, doesn't maintain environmental or cultural flows, like the absolute unfairness of taking an essential human right away from the land and its communities for somebody's profit. It's like the water problems are the problems of capitalism in a little microcosm, but it's actually a giant global cosm. It's terrible. And I just, I want to radically change the laws that govern water in this country and elsewhere, because ours are a mess. There's actually a webinar starting in 15 minutes on called Running Out. It's about a new book about the failures of water policy in Australia. And yeah, I'm going to be listening to that for the next 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to put up links to running out as the book itself and whatnot, because I don't think we'll have this podcast episode out by then. No. So this is very, very soon. But we'll make sure we've got links and everything for that, because it is, like you said, it's an absolute human right that's being taken away, and is just so. I'm speechless. I've got no words.
It's naked greed, and it is it's a disgusting and shameful lack of responsibility and governance on the part of our politicians not to do anything about it.
Yeah. So everybody look out for episode number 2, where we talk about the evils of capitalism and the evils of governments and industrial greed and commercial greed.
I'm here for that. Anytime.
That's the podcast. So look, Tammi, I could talk to you for hours, and like I said, I so appreciate your time. I've had a great time doing it, and I can't believe it's 45 minutes already. That's just bizarre. Look, is there anything you wanted to touch on before you go to your webinar?
No, I mean, I would just, like I always say to people, that the future belongs to those who turn up, and so turning up to be a movement-minded person, to be active in your optimism that there's a future we can live in, you need to join things like AFSA. So go and sign up and become a member of the Food Sovereignty Alliance, because then you add your voice to our numbers that we cite to governments about the people who want change.
Can people be an AFSA if they're not a producer?
Yeah, absolutely. We're farmer-led, but we are a Farmers and Allies organization.
All right, no worries. Well, we're going to have links to that as well to make sure we get everyone signing up. I'm going to go and sign up now as soon as we get off. Yeah. And yes,
great.
Look, thank you again for your time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. You've been awesome. It's just been a great chat, and I'm sure everyone's going to get a lot out of it. So
thanks, Dan. Cheers. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, till next time, everybody. Thank you for that. Look forward to talking to you soon. Cheers. We really got in deep with that conversation. I especially liked and really enjoyed the concept of the CSA, the community supported agriculture. I think it's something that's really underutilized in our country, in our areas, and something that I'm sure a lot of us can get behind. It helps out not only our farmers, but also helps out us to make sure that we're actually getting really good food. It's ethically sourced. It's made in our own backyards, quite literally. Anyway, make sure you look that up. If it's not happening in your area, why not start it? I know it's something I'm looking into at the moment. Anyway, I hope you had a great time. Make sure you share it around. Tell your friends and family. Give us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Make sure you like and share the social channels. I look forward to talking to you later. Look, these few things make a massive difference to the success of the podcast, and it works, the way those algorithms work. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. Talk to you soon.